Welcome to today's webinar, ASTA's Must-Know Travel Industry Update. My name is Cara Kurtz, and I am the Senior Coordinator of Business Development at the American Society of Travel Advisors, and I will be the organizer for today's presentation. If you were with us for our previous updates, welcome back, and to any new attendees, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. You have probably noticed that we are hosting this broadcast in a new platform to better accommodate our high volume of attendees and provide the best attendee experience possible. This webcast is our first live event on this new platform, and we are very excited about the enhanced features that we will be able to provide to you all. If you're experiencing technical difficulties, please try refreshing your browser. You can also try logging off and logging back in if refreshing your browser is not successful. If you still are having technical difficulties, please do not fret, as this webinar is being recorded and hosted on ASTA.org and our video resource library. I'd also like to point out a few important features on your screen that will allow you to interact with us during this presentation. We will be answering your questions at the end of this presentation. To ask a question, you will be using this webcast pane. On the left side of the pane, next to where you see the presentation and under the headshots, you will see an area labeled Ask a Question. Once you have typed your question, you will need to be sure to hit the gray send button in order to submit. If you're having trouble hearing this presentation, please check your computer speakers to ensure that they are powered on and not muted. If you're using an Android device, Apple, iPad, or iPhone to join us today, you will need to click the large media play button to begin the presentation, as those systems do not permit video streams automatically. You can send me any technical issues via this questions pane, and I will try to answer them via the same pane to the best of my ability. So all audience members are muted. We certainly want to hear from you all, but with so many people on this call, background noise would prove to be prohibitive, and we want to ensure that everyone can hear our entire presentation. Finally, please remember that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for your on-demand viewing at ASTA.org within the next few hours. With that said, we are happy to welcome today's presenters, Zane Kirby, President and CEO, Genevieve Strand, Director of Advocacy, Mark Meter, our Senior Vice President of Industry Affairs and Education, Erica Richter, our Senior Director of Communications, and lastly, we will have our Director of Business Development, Sarah Little, joining us for questions at the very end. Here is a brief overview of what we will be discussing today. First, we have an introduction by Zane, followed by some loans, unemployment, and Treasury programs updates by Genevieve Strand, and then carrier and supplier issues, as well as ASTA's actions with Mark Meters, and a communications update with Erica Richter. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Zane Kirby.
Thank you, Cara, and thank you everyone who has joined us this afternoon. Appreciate your time, and thanks for taking time out of your day to join us for this all-industry webcast. First, I would like to express my condolences to those who've been personally affected by the virus. This past week, the virus's destructive power hit home when both ASTA members and ASTA staff lost close relatives. The virus has and continues to exact a terrible toll. Like you, we hope for the day, and that day will come soon, that an effective vaccine will be found and brought to market. Through ASTA's China chapter, we have donated hundreds of N95 masks to hospitals in Florida and the Washington, D.C. area. And thousands more masks and other personal protective equipment are on the way. With you, we applaud and are grateful for the healthcare workers on the front lines. Their sacrifice is inspiring. Last week's PBS NewsHour showcased an EMT ambulance driver that couldn't afford coverage and therefore didn't have health insurance. he was still transporting coronavirus patients to the hospital in 12-hour-a-day shifts. I have nominated him to win ASTA's next year's Vacation Do-Over competition. Our mission at ASTA is to advocate for our members on all fronts. We represent you and your interests to all levels of government, within the industry, and to the traveling public. The past few months have revealed the important role of a National Trade Association plays in your business and in our industry as a whole. When times are good, the general orthodoxy is for government to defend the shore, deliver the mail, secure our rights, and get out of the way. That good life that we experienced was way back in January of 2020. You remember January? Many agencies were reporting record sales. By the end of February, travel was in free fall. By early March, the collective economic future of 335 million Americans was in the hands of our 535 elected representatives in the House and Senate. Thankfully, because of ASTA, those 535 legislators weren't strangers. ASTA's legislative days, hosted the past 6 years, provided the opportunity for many of you to meet your legislators in person. In between ASTA Leg Days, we used ASTA PAC funds to educate legislators face-to-face. These collective actions were critical to securing needed relief, including being one of only 2 travel industry sectors, airline and airline ticket agents, named in the CARES Act. Now, the COVID-19 relief bills are a testament to our democracy's ability to function. A bitterly partisan Congress passed 3 major pieces of legislation in 10 days, and then, while on recess, no less, passed COVID 3.5 about 2 weeks later. It's appropriate to ask, when things were moving at freight train speed on Capitol Hill, again, 4 pieces of legislation in less than a month, what if no relationship building had been done? No ASTA legislative days, none of those dozens of ASTA PAC meetings. When the time came, and it came quickly for Congress to decide what to do, the time for preparation was over. I know it's easy to let the urgent in our lives crowd out the essential, but the essential remains. Some in our industry who hadn't supported ASTA suddenly awoke to the need for a strong, respected voice in Washington. That attitude is akin to people who skip all their wellness visits with a doctor thinking that they can just head to the emergency room if something goes wrong. But emergency room visits are risky and expensive. Over the past week, we've been on the phone with Senator Schumer's and McConnell's offices, helping them understand some of the implementation problems with the current CARES Act, as well as advocating for our relief priorities moving forward. Those top priorities you'll see on the screen here. One is extending the duration of loan forgiveness for the Payroll Protection Program, extending the ridiculously short 2-year repayment terms for the portion of loans that are not forgivable, and extending the term of unemployment benefits to travel advisors. Some of ASTA's largest members don't have access to the Payroll Protection Program at all. And even if they did, it makes little sense for them to take out a loan, even on generous repayment terms, hire hundreds of employees, hire hundreds of employees back now when travel demand is suppressed and new travel regulations are undetermined, pay those employees for the next several months when new sales are low, and then be left with a large loan to repay when travel confidence is restored. This is the unacceptable situation some of our largest agency members find themselves in. Legislators don't understand and therefore don't plan for the nuances of our business. It's our job to educate them. We've been busy this week vetting additional lobbying resources to address this specific problem. Now, the relief programs Genevieve Strand will detail in a few minutes aren't perfect. They are far from it. Many states are still struggling to keep up with the overwhelming number of applications for unemployment benefits. It's unacceptable that so many of you are still waiting for this relief. ASTA is petitioning individual states every day on your behalf. The fact that the Payroll Protection Program needed nearly immediate replenishment due to overwhelming demand, and even worse, abuse from professional sports teams and large publicly traded companies, was maddening. It was frustrating that some of our members' loan applications were delayed until PPP funds ran dry. Sadly, some of the media reports of abuse of the PPP program will make additional congressional assistance less likely. There is a lot of work that remains, but rest assured that ASTA, your voice in Washington, will continue fighting with all available resources. We've also been active on the industry side. We work closely with consortia and host leaders to present a united front when dealing with thorny industry issues. Our airline flexibility statement and subsequent tour operator statements were designed to protect you, the travel advisor, from becoming ensnared in legal jeopardy between customers who are petitioning their credit card companies for refunds and suppliers who are demanding to make you responsible for those refunded amounts. Mark Meter is going to provide more detail a little later. We were heartened by ARC's announcement 2 weeks ago and are working behind the scenes with individual tour operators to ensure our members' financial safety. You'll be happy to know that in the coming weeks, ASTA's Board of Directors will be considering amendments to the ASTA Code of Ethics, which would, among other things, require all member supplier companies to provide consumers with a full and unconditional refund anytime the booked travel is canceled by the supplier or any third party. On the consumer front, we know that without clear national guidelines and procedures to restore confidence in travel, both business and leisure travelers will wait on the sidelines. Unlike other products and services, our consumers have to show up in person. Without a coordinated international effort, local government officials will be reticent to allow airline and cruise visitors to pass through their borders who may endanger their local populations and ultimately their economies. ASTA has a seat at the table, making recommendations to the Department of Commerce and other government agencies to help shape the new travel landscape. Now, I wouldn't have wished COVID-19 on anyone, but one unmistakable result is that the world of travel is going to be more complicated than before. Consequently, the services of a trusted travel advisor will be more important than ever as well. Now, next week, on May 6th, we celebrate National Travel Advisor Day. We'll have another webcast like this one. It will be open to all. Erica Richter is going to announce several initiatives today. We've compiled a video from our Not All Heroes Wear Capes campaign, an ad that includes a montage of stories from ASTA travel advisors saving the day for their customers in the wake of COVID-19. We invite you to join us next week when we debut this ad and ask you to help share it with your personal social media channels. Again, thank you to all ASTA members. We hope we can count on your continued support and advocacy as we navigate through this crisis. If you're joining us for the first time and you're not an ASTA member yet, please consider coming together with us in our fight for your business and a brighter future for travel. Now over to Genevieve Strand. Genevieve.
Thanks, Zane, and thank you to everyone on this webcast for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy days. So as Zane mentioned, I'm going to be starting off with just a little bit of an overview of sort of what relief has been provided to date, sharing a little bit more information about those programs, and letting you know what's on the horizon for ASTA's advocacy efforts coming up. So we've had essentially 3 rounds of funding and various programs that have been rolled out by the federal government. And the first round in early March really focused on shoring up hospitals and stressed healthcare resources across the country. The second one expanded on a lot of those things, and it really wasn't until round 3, which took place in late March, that Congress had sort of pivoted to looking at how to support businesses and how to support the wider economy that's taken such a large hit. So that $2 trillion stimulus package that was passed in the end of March, known as the CARES Act, this is the largest stimulus package ever passed by Congress. And there was a number of different elements in there that were helpful to our members, including the Payroll Protection Program, which was $349 billion when it was originally authorized, Treasury loans, which were $500 billion overall, $25 billion of which were indexed for airlines and ticket agents, which is the statutory term for travel advisors. Additionally, $10 billion was put into the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. That's a program that SBA already had up and running for situations like this, so additional funding was provided for that, as well as really dramatically expanding employment benefits for unemployment benefits, for ICs. Traditionally, they were not eligible for state unemployment programs, so this was a big change as well to support a large number of our members that work as independent contractors. So, of course, last week, we passed what we're sort of referring to in D.C. as round 3.5. It really wasn't another full bill. This was just sort of intended as a top-up. Those programs that were first rolled out, the funds were depleted really quite quickly, and some of the healthcare institutions also needed some additional funding with the continued crisis. So that was another $484 billion on top of that $2 trillion to top up those programs. So let's talk a little bit more about that round 3.5. So the first thing it did was increase PPP funding, and so that was an 88% increase. That brought us up to $659 billion in total funding. One of the great things that was also done in this bill was to set aside specifically $60 billion of that for smaller banks, community financial institutions, and credit unions, just to try and encourage them to be able to participate in the program. There were a lot of rollout issues that I'll get into a little bit in a moment here, but that was a change that we thought was really promising to help some of our members have access to those funds if they are working through smaller banks, as a number of smaller banks, didn't have access to the funds or weren't participating in the program originally. So it also adds another $50 billion to those emergency loans, the EIDL loans provided by SBA. So that's a 500% increase in funding for that program, which is fantastic. And it also added another $10 billion for the EIDL grants. So I'll talk a little bit more about those later, but some forgivable grant money that was available on an emergency basis through that program was also replenished. So the Treasury loans and unemployment programs were not given any additional funding, and no additional changes were made there. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the PPP program. So I do want to highlight we have a great build-out of resources for our members, asta.org/COVID-19 member. There's actually an individual video and fact sheet about each of these programs, some FAQs, a lot of great supporting documents from the relevant agencies that are running these, so encourage members to check those out. So the Paycheck Protection Program, we're now up to a total of $659 billion that's available for small businesses. So they've gone with the SBA size standard of 500 or fewer employees. Those are also available to ICs, sole proprietors, or any sort of one-person business models like that as well, which is great because not all of the SBA programs are available that way. You can borrow 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs, up to a cap of $10 million. They have come out now and said that anyone that takes a loan larger than $2 million will be audited, which is great. I think that'll go a long way towards preventing some of the unscrupulous behavior that Zane mentioned earlier, to just make sure that the people that are taking these loans are really the people that should be taking them and really rely on them. So the interest rate is capped at 1%, which is great. It's a nice low interest rate. The terms are capped at 2 years, which is, in our view, a little bit short, so that's something we're going to be pushing to change in future rounds. So the program originally launched on April 3rd for small businesses, and then April 10th for those ICs or sole proprietors. So a new round of funding, as we mentioned, was just passed. And those funds became available as of the 27th, so just a couple days ago. And as with last time, we expect that those will probably go quite quickly. So if this is a program you're interested in, definitely better to take advantage sooner rather than later. Now, the economic injury disaster loans. So these are a program already in existence through the SBA, designed for times of crisis to support businesses in disaster areas. So sometimes this program has been used in the past for things like hurricanes or flooding. So obviously this is a little bit different of a kind of disaster, but it's still a program that is a great option for a number of our members. Again, since it's an SBA program, it's that 500 or fewer employees cap, and you are going to need to have suffered substantial economic injury due to the coronavirus crisis, which I think is an easy one for just about everybody in our industry, unfortunately, to satisfy. So the maximum loan for these is $2 million, so it's a little bit smaller than what's available through PPP. The interest rate is 3.75%, but what is attractive about these is the terms can be up to 30 years. So if you are taking out a larger loan, you can amortize it over a longer period of time, which means it's going to cost you a lot less when you get to that repayment phase. There's also no guarantees that are required with that, so that's another great advantage to this program. So additionally, I mentioned those emergency grants. So it's up to $10,000 that's provided in advance. So when you apply through the SBA for a loan, you can also apply for one of these emergency advance grants, and those funds won't need to be repaid. So essentially, it's provided to you as a grant on a temporary basis while you're waiting for the larger funds of your loan. Unfortunately, as with PPP, we ran into a lot of funding issues and limitations there, and I know there's been issues with that $10,000 advance as well that we've been hearing from our members, so that's something we actually had a great call with the Senate Small Business Committee about that today. They're going to work with SBA to try and get us some answers there. But this is, again, a program that's been refunded. So these applications can be done online. It's the fastest way to do it. It'll take you about 2 hours, depending on your business, to submit all the necessary paperwork and go through that online. So the other change that I mentioned to the original CARES Act was the expansion of unemployment to folks that were traditionally not able to take advantage of unemployment. So there were no changes under round 3.5, but just as a review for folks, the unemployment compensation that's available through the CARES Act is going to be available to ICs, others who are traditionally ineligible, as well as W-2 employees. So to claim those benefits, you're going to work through your state office. You're going to have to self-certify that you're able to work, that you're available to work, that you want to work, but you're not able to due to the impacts of COVID-19. So the benefits are going to be determined on a state-by-state basis, but there is a sort of floor that was set by Congress of $600 per week. So nobody will be receiving less than that, and those benefits do run for a 4-month period, and that eligibility is between now and December 31st. So, if you're at a place where you're not necessarily needing these programs now, just know that these are going to be available through the end of this year. Now, unfortunately, this is another program that has run into some hiccups, and we've been working hard to sort of voice these issues, working with both the state unemployment offices, the state governors, but also working at the federal level here. The systems are pretty overwhelmed. A lot of states are just seeing a ridiculously high uptick in unemployment right now, unfortunately. Some states are accepting applications. Some states haven't yet started accepting applications for ICs, so it does vary state by state. But you're going to apply with your state unemployment offices. Most states will allow you to do that application entirely online. And we are updating on a daily basis our guidance by state. So if you look on, again, that COVID-19 member webpage, you'll find a number of great documents that walk you through what the status of your current state is, as well as any specific guidance for folks looking to take advantage of this expanded unemployment. Just a friendly reminder here, if you are applying as an IC, don't indicate that you have W-2 wages or are an employee of your host agency if you work through a host agency, because this will cause your application to be declined. And cause headaches on both sides. So just friendly reminder there. But again, if you want to see where your state specifically is at with these programs, please check out our member webpage. And then last but not least, certainly, is that exciting category of Treasury programs that we mentioned where there was specific funds set aside for travel advisors. So most folks are probably going to take advantage of the other SBA loans or forgivable loans or the various other programs. But for especially some of our bigger members, these loans are really targeted at them. So it's $500 billion in loans and loan guarantees to support U.S. businesses that haven't received enough relief through other programs in the CARES Act. So $25 billion of that, as I mentioned, is set aside for passenger airlines, aircraft repair stations, ticket agents. So again, the applicant is going to need to establish a number of things, including the fact that they weren't able to find financing elsewhere. And that term is going to be 5 years. Interest will be prevailing market rates. And with these loans, unfortunately, there is no loan forgiveness, but they are over a little bit longer of a term than the 2 years. So Treasury opened the applications for these loans on the 8th. The deadline for initial submission was April 17th, but late applications are still being accepted until April 30th. So for any of the bigger companies out there that haven't taken advantage of these loans, again, we have some great guidance and all the forms that you'll need to apply on our member-only website. So that's sort of everything that we've been through up until now. And with that, I just want to quickly talk a little bit more about what some of our priorities are going to be for this so-called round 4 of funding and what that might look like. So the Senate is scheduled to return May 4th. The House has now decided they will not be returning on the 4th. They're going to stay out a little bit longer, so it'll likely be the Senate that kind of takes the reins on this. But our priorities, focusing on the sort of immediate needs of our member are some tweaks to the PPP program. So not only additional funding, but extending the amount of time that you have to use those loans, extending the program through to the end of the year. As Zane mentioned, talking about some of those terms being extended past 2 years to potentially 5 years. We're also going to be looking at some additional funding for ticket agent loans and some of the other big programs. And Mark will talk a little bit more about some of the work we've been doing with airlines, but we're also taking advantage of this as a time to talk to Congress about these issues. They have put a number of different caveats on those customer service, on those loans. So something we'd like to see in the future is some customer service requirements related to refunds, chargebacks, commissions, attached to those loan provisions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark to talk about some industry affairs issues.
Thank you so much, Genevieve. To all of you, welcome. Great to speak again with you this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. What I thought I would do would be to highlight some of the specific industry work that we do from an advocacy perspective as well. We talked a lot about the government actions that we've taken in terms of support and advocating for yourselves. We do that also on the industry side too. So many of you may know, back on April 3rd, the U.S. Department of Transportation published what they call an enforcement notice. That enforcement notice reminded U.S. and foreign airlines that they must comply with U.S. refund rules for flights that fly into, within, or from the United States. So this is not a new rule, but rather a reminder to carriers that there is this rule in place. And what that notice does is to tell airlines that remind them that they are obligated to provide prompt refunds for flights, again, to, within, or from the United States. It applies to cancel flights or those flights where schedule changes may have occurred when the passenger, the traveler, may choose not to accept an alternate offer that the airline may make. Could be for future travel vouchers or that sort of thing. The obligation to provide these refunds including ticketing price and any unused optional fees applies even when the flight disruptions are outside that airline's control. So that's a significant happening back on the 3rd of April that was much to the favor of the agency community that we are very happy for. Now, in addition to that, ASTA on the same day, the 3rd of April, published a statement that Zane mentioned briefly earlier. We asked airlines to do what's right by taking on several different areas of focus important to the agency community. We asked them to relax fare rules in order to accommodate refunds for any flight, at least through the end of this year. We also asked that they refrain from issuing debit memos for credit card chargebacks on canceled flights when the airlines are refusing, where the airlines are refusing refunds today. And I'll have a little bit more on that in terms of some ARC changes that occurred subsequent to our statement as well. We've asked the airlines to make sure that travelers who booked through an agency are advised to contact their advisor, contact their agency to process those refunds and exchanges rather than go directly to the carrier's website to do so. As you can imagine, for many agencies, large and small, that's important to maintain customer and traveler integrity, also to manage through mid and back office systems, ensuring that financial and other data is obtained correctly as well. We've asked airlines to make sure that all tickets are fully refundable and not just credited for future travel. Not that future travel credits are a bad thing, but if a customer would prefer a refund, we're pushing that they are indeed entitled to that as per the DOT, and that refund should be made. We want all travel advisors to process refunds via their GDS, and in the United States through ARC, the Airlines Reporting Corporation. And in the case where commissions apply or incentives, we believe that they should be protected as well. In addition, there are more asks that we've had. We've asked the airlines to protect advisor commissions on refunded tickets. We have asked that they confirm that penalty charges or change fees not apply for canceled or rebooked flights at least during the current crisis. And travelers need to have the opportunity to use any credit for unused tickets for at least 2 years from the original date of departure, not the original ticketing date, but the original date of departure. We've also requested that they extend the window for rebooking flights for a minimum of 1 year from the date of travel with no change fees. And then lastly, that they ensure that ancillary fees for any flight booked in 2020 that is subsequently canceled is fully refundable to the traveler. So moving on and kind of in sync with that, you might ask, well, what is happening in a broader sense throughout the rest of the world that may also impact us here in the United States? Many of you may know or are familiar with the IATA, the International Air Transport Association. They have taken quite a different refund stance in terms of promoting their association member airlines, which are the majority of airlines throughout the world, and are pushing for vouchers to be provided, not refunds, in all global markets. Now, what I can tell you is that this is certainly contrary to the DOT enforcement notice that was issued here, but it's also contrary to European Union Transport Commission rules as well. In the backdrop, IATA is soliciting support from governments globally, not necessarily here in the US, but elsewhere. And the European Commission indicates that refusing airline refunds also violates European Union law. So the key point here is that it's not okay to refuse refunds, not only in the United States, but also in Europe. Now, I can tell you that the European enforcement process is perhaps a little bit more complex and not as clear-cut as it might be here in the United States. Already there are several companies that are seeking permission to be exceptions to this rule, Netherlands and Germany in particular. There may be more. And then there are in other parts of the world, the Canadian government, for example, and the Colombian government, another example, is permitting vouchers now. They're not forcing airlines to issue refunds. Complexity there is when you may have a Canadian carrier who flies to the United States that if and when they do, for those bookings, they are required to provide refunds. So moving on, I mentioned earlier, and Zane talked to this a bit as well, we were really pleased to learn in the last several weeks that in terms of airline debit memos and chargebacks, ARC, the Airlines Reporting Corporation, will not take action, recently announced they will not take action on any debit memos that either involve flights that are canceled by an airline or a government as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are related to passenger compensation disputes resulting from COVID-19. They won't hold agencies liable for these debit memo payments or take action that could affect accreditation status. Now, this does not mean that the airlines will not be issuing debit memos. They well may, but ARC will not be holding agencies liable for these memos as they occur. In addition, ARC also extended the Ticket Resolution Services, their TRS, compensatory fee grace period from 15 to 45 days. So what this does is to provide agencies and airlines more time to resolve open debit memo issues during the crisis, which is good for agencies as well in terms of resolving existing disputes. ARC is also suspending their pay chargeback fee for an interim period which began on the 9th of April. ARC Pay is the fee that they charge for what was called TAF, the Travel Agency Service Fee. That is, as I said, being suspended for an interim period. So the key point here in terms of ARC is that the actions, we believe, are a strong testament to the value and trust that not only ARC places in the travel agency community, but its owner airlines do as well. It's a big vote of confidence in terms of the value that the agencies offer and bring to the airline booking channel. So moving on, it's not just about airlines, right? There are other suppliers that we've been focused on too. So cruise and tour company refunds, chargebacks, and commissions can be problematic. Commission payout issues are some less problematic than air. Nevertheless, they exist. There have been inconsistencies with frequent policies ever changing. They continue to evolve. Some policies may have changed subsequent or retroactively to the date when which the supplier purchase was made. Chargeback patterns are emerging in some instances, and certainly commission protection and payout timeframes many of you have found problematic. So on the one hand, while we commend suppliers who are going the extra mile to support the agency community, there's still a lot of work to be done. As I mentioned, retroactive changes by some suppliers really must reverse course. So in a similar way as to what we did with our airline public push, ASTA published a public statement on the 10th of April, asking suppliers to do the right thing when suppliers cancel their portions of the journey. So again, this may range from tour operators, cruise lines, et cetera. We pushed hard to ensure that all travel components are fully refundable and not just provided through FTCs or future travel credits. We've asked suppliers to honor original agency commissions if the travel is rebooked. If the travel is refunded, they should at least consider a partial commission payment for the work that you, the agency, has done. We've asked that they honor agency commissions at the time of deposit or at the time of final payment, not any time later than that. That's key and important. And that they forego cancellation fees on rebooked or refunded itineraries. Ensuring travel credits are at least equal to the price the travel paid is also key and very important. Now, there's no time limit on credit issued for canceled bookings when in lieu of a refund, and they really must make credit good for at least 2 years from the original departure date. So we've had a lot of work and activity both internally at ASTA alongside our consortia partners to push this statement forward, and we've already begun to see favorable changes in this regard with our supplier community. So both great news from an airline perspective, ARC settlement perspective, and remaining supplier perspective as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Erica Richter, our Director of Communications. Erica.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. First, I'm going to start with a reminder to follow us on social media. We're all practicing social distancing these days, but we want to make sure that you're a part of our social community. And when you join us on Facebook, you'll also have access to our ASTA member lounge, which is a Facebook group under ASTA's page. And when you're following us on social, you're also making sure that you're getting updates from us in real time. We always post announcements and action alerts on social media, so we want to make sure that you're connected, and if you're not yet, please do. So National Travel Advisor Day is next week. It's on Wednesday, May 6th, and we're looking forward to celebrating this day with you. Just a reminder, National Travel Advisor Day is always the first Wednesday in May, and it falls in line with National Travel and Tourism Week, which is always the first week of May. However, some of our partners in the industry celebrate travel advisors all month, and we support that too. But Travel Advisor Day is next week, May 6th. And leading up to next week, we've launched our Travel Hero campaign. Over the past few months, as Zane mentioned, we've collected Travel Advisor Save the Day stories. And those stories really inspired these Travel Advisor hero characters that you see below. You can also download these characters from our toolkit that we created for you. And we want to continue to share your Travel Save the Day stories with the hashtag Travel Hero, because we want to follow along with you. And so these are the two hashtags that we're going to be using from now until Travel Advisor Day. And again, the characters are available for download. Here's a preview of the toolkit that is live right now on ASTA.org. And this toolkit we made just for you. And there's 3 different ways that you can help celebrate National Travel Advisor Day with us. The first is to be a storyteller. We have a great platform that actually allows you to connect directly with your editors in your local media market. And so we have preloaded a letter to the editor, which is fully customizable. And all you need to do is put in your address and your zip code, and that letter gets sent to your media outlet. And again, you can add personal anecdotes and customize the letter, but it's a really great way to share the value that you provide to your customers and to the travel industry in celebration of this day. And we hope that if our travel advisors start doing this now, we'll have a lot of great stories in local media markets on Travel Advisor Appreciation Day next week. We also set up a portal for you to advocate with your members of Congress. Same platform, all you need to do is enter in your address, your zip code, and that pre-written letter is sent off to your member of Congress. And we also want to make sure that you're customizing it if you want to, but this platform is really easy. And with members of Congress, we really want to make sure that leading up to Travel Advisor Day, we're telling members of Congress about the critical role that travel advisors play in the broader travel and tourism industry. We also want to tell them about the challenges that we're facing due to the coronavirus crisis. So these 2 portals are here for you to communicate with your media and with your members of Congress. And we also have created some great social media graphics for you. We've sized them down to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so they're really easy for you to download and use. And they're all available right now for you. And here's just an example of some of the graphics that we've created. As I mentioned, they're all sized for you. And if you're looking for the National Travel Advisor Day logo, that's also available in this toolkit. We have 2 versions of it. We have a color version and a black and white version. So if you want to use the logo to create your own graphics or to do your own email campaign, that's what it's there for. So we wanted to make sure that you had all of those resources. And leading up to next week, when we celebrate National Travel Advisor Day, we're going to be sharing your stories on our consumer-facing website, travelsense.org. So ASTA members get a profile on travelsense.org. That is where we connect travelers to travel advisors that are ASTA members. And we're really excited about this launch because, as Zane mentioned, we're going to have a campaign video that we're going to launch next week that shows a montage of all of these travel advisor hero stories in real life. And that video is going to be on this landing page. And then some of the travel advisors that submitted stories to us will also have their own dedicated page where the full text of their story will be listed and their individual video. And we're going to continue to collect these stories on an ongoing basis. So if you have a story that you want to share with us, you can still do that. We have our submission form on asta.org/COVID-19. You can tell us your story and we'll add it to the collection. But next week, we're really looking forward to launching this consumer page so that we're continuing to show your value to the traveling public and really let the travelers know just how much you care about your clients and the future of travel. And so we're really looking forward to this. Just another reminder that our ASTA Verified Travel Advisor program is on discount right now. That discount will last through May 31st, a 40% discount on renewing your certification with our Verified Travel Advisor program. If you are looking to brush up on your professional skills, now is a great time to take advantage of these savings. Like I mentioned, it goes through May 31st. And also, the 50% discount on enrollment, VTA 50, is available for people who have not participated in the program yet. So what we are doing is for anyone that started their certification but did not get a chance to finish it, we're offering a 3-month extension for you. All you need to do is email us, and we'll get that set up. But now is a great time to take advantage of finishing your VTA or starting your VTA certification through ASTA. And then to go a step further with our education offerings, for the month of May for ASTA members, we're offering these 3 courses for $9.99. Media training, which is a great program if you're interested in getting out there in your local media market. A friend of ours at CBS, Wendy Gillette, helped us create that program, and we get really good advice put together for you so that you feel confident about promoting your value as a travel expert in your local market. We also have a great course on marketing your business, and we have a very exclusive course on travel agency relationships and the law that we put together with our very own expert, Peter Labasso, our general counsel. And so for ASTA members, these 3 programs are available for $9.99, and we really hope that you take advantage of these savings during this time. And as I mentioned, if you're not an ASTA member, please join us. We are looking forward to welcoming you into our community. The stronger we are together, the louder our voice, and the more broad we can advocate on your behalf. So please visit asta.org/join. Talk to someone on our membership team if you have questions, and we're really looking forward to welcoming you into our community. ASTA members have exclusive resources available to them for the coronavirus, and Genevieve mentioned this, but we do have a dedicated web form for travel advisors. So if you're an ASTA member and you're a travel advisor, you get access to ASTA staff to ask questions. I see that we have quite a few questions coming through, so I'll wrap this up. But if you are an ASTA member and your question does not get answered, please visit asta.org/COVID-19 member, where you can submit your question in our dedicated form for ASTA staff. So that is available for you. And then we also have resources available for everyone on asta.org/COVID-19. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Zane Kirby to close us out.
Again, well, thank you, Erica and Mark and Genevieve, for the time you've been able to share with everyone on the phone today. We'd also like to thank our proud partners. These are supplier partners who have definitely done the work in terms of committing their resources to you and to the association that represents you. They should be applauded. We'd like to open it up now for a couple of questions. I understand Sarah Little, also on our staff, has been monitoring the questions. And Sarah, if you have some that you feel would be appropriate for the group, please share.
Perfect. Thank you, Zane. So I do want to start off by saying we have received hundreds of questions, and we will be following up with people personally after this webinar if your question doesn't get answered live, so don't fret on that. I also want to address one question we've received quite a bit about our website. We have done an upgrade this week on our website, so if you are trying to join ASTA with the discount today, or access another resource on our website that you cannot, just reach out to Ask ASTA at asta.org, and they'll be able to help you out with any resources you need or joining. But we do expect the website to be up in the next day or so. We apologize for that inconvenience, but it will be hopefully a bit easier to navigate and have some new upgrades once it goes back live. So I just want to address that. I'm going to try to get to as many of these as we can. The first question that we have is going to be for Genevieve Strand. And Genevieve, that question is, may ICs apply for both unemployment and PPP?
So unfortunately, I'm going to have a really not very satisfying answer. And it really is, it depends. The forgiveness programs attached to the forgiveness requirements attached to the PPP might make it prohibitive if you're also drawing unemployment and, again, taking those funds in to be paying your own salary might interfere with your ability to collect unemployment. So really that's going to sort of depend on what you're using the loan for and how your business is structured. So I apologize if that's a really unsatisfying answer. We do have a bit more guidance on those programs and how they might work together. And we do have a fact sheet coming out specifically about the forgiveness provisions and how you can make sure you're set up correctly for those. So I'm going to suggest the very unsatisfying answer of visiting asta.org/COVID-19 member, because that's a bit of a complicated one. Thank you, though.
Yeah. This one's for Zane. It is, what percentage of ASTA members have received unemployment and PPP loans? I don't know if you have an updated number on that, Zane.
Yeah, you know, I only have a number that's about a week old, and it was very unsatisfying. It was in the high 20 percentages who have qualified for and already received PPP loans, and it was less than 20% who had received unemployment. And that's why we've been pushing really hard on individual states to get these programs up and running and get relief out to our members, because again, the initial survey that we fielded about a week ago and got the results from was extraordinarily unsatisfying. So just know that if you're in that boat where you haven't received relief yet, that you're not alone, and we continue to, again, on a state-by-state basis, continue to push and push the individual state unemployment offices to get these funds out.
Okay, great. Next question is for Mark, and it's regarding supplier issues. We've had a few questions like this. If someone's having some difficulty with a supplier or an airline and they're refusing, to give a refund even when a flight has been canceled or suspended, is there any, recourse, any recourse that they can take to get a refund or get some relief there, Mark?
Well, that's a good question. So the first thing I would do would be to contact the supplier rep, airline rep, that if you have one, that you can talk to on that topic to get the status. One thing that we do realize is that for many of our suppliers, airline and otherwise, suddenly they have significant serious cash flow issues. So not only is cash an issue for them, but the volume of requested refunds is an issue as well. And while that doesn't dilute the issue or problem in terms of our perspective and the need to provide that refund, it has certainly slowed down the process. I can tell you of many examples where what should be a rapidly processed refund, both air and other supplier perspective, is simply taking much longer. The good news is that, as I said earlier, the DOT requires a refund be issued under the circumstances I mentioned earlier. To varying degrees, we may need to be patient with the ability for an airline to provide that in a timely manner. We have brought to the DOT's attention of several cases where it may appear to be a little bit unreasonable in terms of the length of time it's taken, but so far the DOT has, to our knowledge, not taken any enforcement actions against the carrier on that, but they could and will, should it go on too long. And then from a supplier perspective, it's really about understanding whether or not the request for a refund takes place as a result of a supplier's terms and conditions that might have changed, as I mentioned earlier, retroactively from the time of booking. If that's the case, that is certainly it's certainly litigious in terms of its suitability. That should not be happening. So it's really a matter of pushing back on the supplier and in order to get that, and then separately needing to be somewhat patient as we go through this. We are literally living through the issue as we speak. So it may not be a specific answer in terms of exactly what to do, but patience is certainly a key word here too.
Great, thank you, Mark. The next question is for Genevieve, and I think it just may apply to quite a few callers. So it is, my travel agency is an LLC, and I also have a full-time job outside of travel. Am I eligible to file for unemployment? What are my options? I'm not sure if you could try to address that one, Genevieve.
Yeah, so, we've heard from a number of members who have tried to apply for unemployment if they're also, they work a full-time job and travel is their part-time, working as a travel advisor is their part-time job. Unfortunately, it's going to vary state by state as every state is sort of setting up the criteria. We have heard of a number of instances where folks have been turned down and their states are not permitting, but I think the best thing you can do is apply with your state, make sure you're being completely honest about what your income looks like right now, and allow them to make the determination of whether you qualify or not.
Okay, perfect. Next question is for Erica. The person just says, thank you to ASTA for all the successful efforts with Congress and obtaining the financial help for travel advisors, but their question is, travel advisors are repeatedly being reminded of the important role they play in their clients' travel plans. What is ASTA doing to get this message out to the general public? Erica, can you touch on that?
Sure. Well, we talk to the media every day, so we are, and every chance that we get, putting that message out there on behalf of the industry. And as I mentioned, the toolkit that we have available for National Travel Advisor Day is really a great resource for you to be a part of getting that message out with us, because we know that the more people that participate, the stronger the message is. So I encourage you to visit our toolkit and to send a letter to your editor and send a letter to your member of Congress as well, and participate in celebrating Travel Advisor Day with us. But also consider taking the media training course and learn how to be your own expert and advocate in your own media market, because if we have travel advisors doing that in all the major media markets, collectively, we will have travel experts everywhere. So we want to make sure that you are empowered and equipped with the tools to take your message to the media as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica.
Sorry, Sarah, can I just jump in really quick here? And not only I think Erica does fantastic work, but just to augment, to add on to that answer, I mean, one of the things that COVID-19 sort of revealed is that the people who worked with a travel advisor and the people who didn't were definitely on their own, and this really the virus highlighted that aspect of the travel experience. And so we're really going to bring that to the floor next week in the video that we're putting together, where travel advisors really do save the day for their consumer clients. And I mean, some even went above and beyond and saved people who weren't their clients, which was a nice thing to do. But it's gonna be really clear after next week. It's the messaging that we're putting out, the ad that we're putting out next week in conjunction with Travel Advisor Day, just what kinds of problems that you solve for consumers and why they should never go anywhere without talking to you.
Great, thanks, Zane. I think this will bring us to the end of our questions. We're going to get cut off here in a minute because we've hit our time limit, but we will post this webinar on ASTA.org and follow up with anyone whose question we did not get to after this. Thanks again to everyone who joined us and all our presenters, and we wish everybody a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch with you shortly. Stay safe out there.
Thank you so much, Sarah. As Sarah said, this will conclude today's presentation, and we hope that everyone has a wonderful afternoon. We look forward to seeing everyone next Wednesday, May 6th, on National Travel Advisor Day at the exact same time for another update. Have an absolutely amazing rest of your day, everyone.